Hey everybody, it is Kathy with Backyard Columbus, and I thank you for joining me today. So today's episode is about the decline in butterflies and how we can easily turn this thing around, okay? So I was watching the news the other day, and CBS and NBC both ran the same news story. It was about a 20 to 30 second clip, and it was about the decline in butterflies across the nation, okay? And that is terrible. But both of these broadcasts failed to mention clearly and easily how easily it is for people to get involved and do something in their own backyard and help turn this thing around. So that's very discouraging for somebody like me. I mean, I feel that if you are part of a conservation organization, it's already in your nature to try to combat these things. You already know the data because your emails or what you decide to read online, you're already seeking that information out. But if you are a busy parent, a busy career person, or whatever. I mean, maybe you're just a rabid soccer player or whatever your thing is. You're busy. And it doesn't mean you don't like butterflies or you wouldn't do something if you knew what you could do. So here is some of the data that was spit out, and this is from the journal Science. And in case you didn't know, Science magazine is a very well-regarded, well-vetted, extraordinarily researched publication on the cutting edge of science, all things sciencey, okay? And so this is where this information came from. And so here are the numbers. 12.6 million butterflies spanning 342 species, drawing from 76,000 surveys. And if you're still with me, it's from across 35 nationwide monitoring programs. And this was all funded by the U.S. Geological Survey. And it revealed that 33% of butterfly species have experienced significant population declines over the last 2 decades. And that is about 107 out of the 342 species examined lost more than half their population, and 22 species were at a 90% decline. So that all sucks, okay? But what are you supposed to do with all of that information? Okay, those are some pretty heavy-duty numbers, and what it listed, and it's not that this isn't true, it's just I feel like this starts piling on the load of crap that you already have in your life. You know what I mean? There's all kinds of things that you can point to. There's people out of work. There are people who are homeless. There are people who are dying. There are wars, and that doesn't even count anybody's political situation across the globe, okay? So according to this study, and it's not that I don't believe this, because if this is absolutely true, habitat loss, climate change, and pesticide use are driving the declines of these butterflies. So let's break that down a little bit into what that means for you as a suburban dweller, as an urban dweller, or even if you live out in the country. Maybe you have an apartment, house, condo, whatever it is, all right? There are actually things that you can do to help this out, because what I find with a lot of these environmental reports, it's all doom and gloom and everything. And again, I'm not disagreeing with this. Lots of things are because of climate change. Okay, listen, I'm not going to get down in the weeds about this, but whether that is naturally occurring climate change, and I am, just so you know, I am a climate change believer. I am not a naysayer, but whether that is the natural a change on the earth, or it's human caused, and you could certainly point to you bulldoze down a meadow or a forest. That is for a fact human caused. That didn't just spontaneously occur. Okay, but when you talk about things having to do with climate change, the average person does not feel like that's something that they can do. You know what I mean? I'm a very involved environmentalist to the best of my ability because I do work a full-time job, but I'm not going to counteract the oil industry. I'm not going to counteract an oil refinery, a tire manufacturer, or things like that, okay? But there are little things that we can do. And so let's just take climate change out of this equation for a second, okay? So I'm going to mark that off my little chart here. Habitat loss and pesticide use is 1,000,000,000,000% something that, let's stick with a homeowner, okay, with a yard and that kind of stuff. That is something that is totally in your control. So let's just point to habitat loss. So the issue here is I say this all the time, we're not trying to reforest or replant a forest for elephants, okay? We're not trying to replant a forest for tigers. Both of those animals need hundreds and hundreds of acres, miles of land so that they can thrive. They're not going to thrive in I don't know, a quarter of an acre. They won't breed. They won't look. It just is a disaster. Butterflies, however, really don't need a lot of space to live. And to be truthful with you, a load of butterfly species only live a week and a half. But that doesn't mean I don't want to see them. I mean, with the exception of one friend I met recently, everybody loves butterflies except his wife. Apparently, she's terrified of them. I don't know if she got caught in a butterfly mob when she was a young kid or what. But anyway, most people love seeing butterflies, at least. Maybe they don't want to hold them or have them walk around their face, but they love seeing them. It's like a little sign of happiness. Some people find them to be very spiritual, but the flat fact is they are also a pollinator. And a pollinator means they go from flower to flower, helping to transport the pollen from one flower to the other. Butterflies eat nectar, and that's the juicy, sweet stuff, the liquidy, sweet stuff in the inside of a nectar-producing flower. All right, that's what they eat. But when they go to the flower to eat the nectar, to sip the nectar, they get the little pollen all over their bodies, and then when they fly to the next flower, then they transport that pollen to that flower, okay? And so that's how things get cross-pollinated. And if you never thought about it before, if flowers do not cross-pollinate, we don't have flowers. If tomatoes do not cross-pollinate, if zucchini do not cross-pollinate, if corn, this would be bad, doesn't cross-pollinate, although I don't know that that requires insects. But the point is, these food-producing things need to exchange pollen or we don't get the food, okay? Look, that was like very not technical, but it's the point. If these flowers do not cross-pollinate, most of them, especially native ones, we don't get flowers. So that is why pollinators are so important. Now, pollinators include a lot of things. Bees, butterflies, moths, ants could, travel from flower to flower. Did I already say flies? Flies. Things like that, okay? Anything that goes to wasps, anything that goes from flower to flower, if it goes to another flower, then it's a pollinator. Bats actually do some of that also. But butterflies are fun. They're like the panda bear of the animal kingdom, okay? And so this is why it's a big deal. It's not just an environmentalist issue. Lots of things, if we only had just a bunch of humans walking around, that's no fun. I'm tired of seeing people. I don't know about you. I love seeing butterflies. So let's skinny this back down. I'm digressing I'm going on another path here, but habitat loss in your yard, and let's just say you're the typical suburban dweller and you like your green lawn and you like your one tree and you like your 5 bushes, and you don't want to rip up your whole backyard like we have and plant all these beds because for a myriad of reasons, maybe you don't have the time, maybe you don't have the money, maybe you don't have the physical ability to do that. So I am definitely not a purist in a lot of these things because I feel like everyone has their own life to live and I'm not going to get anywhere. All right. So let's just say that all of that hits you. You don't have a lot of time, you don't have a lot of money, and you have a back that hates your guts. All right. But you have the time and the physical capacity and a couple of extra bucks to have 2 pots, 2 plant pots. 2 plant pots, and you plant one with zinnias, and maybe you plant one with milkweed. That's my plug for milkweed. But maybe you just plant one full of zinnias, and you plant one full of whatever the heck makes your heart happy. Marigolds. I feel that marigolds, it's a hard sell to people. They don't smell that great, but they do a great job in the garden. But cosmos, lantana, anything that floats your boat. Now, those all will produce nectar and pollen, but whatever else floats your boat at the nursery, then have at it. But if you got one pot, I will skinny this down to 1 pot of a nectar-producing flower. And if that seems too overwhelming to you, then remind your phone to remind you when you get home to Google what nectar-producing flowers will grow in your zone. I've talked about this before, but a growing zone, a hardiness zone, is the area in the country where you live and what will grow there. But basically, I'm telling you, if you have a summer Everything will grow in the summer. It just won't survive the winter necessarily, okay? So what will thrive all year long in California will not thrive in an Ohio winter. So just Google nectar-producing flowers for wherever it is you live. And I'm in central Ohio, so I would Google nectar-producing flowers for Ohio. And then put a pot out of that. If everyone had one pot, I mean, seriously, if everyone had one pot of nectar-producing flowers, we would not have an issue with butterflies. Now, that is part one, because I'm getting very focused on nectar-producing flowers. There is another thing that if you want more butterflies, like they breed, they mate, they lay eggs, and that's how we get more butterflies, right? Well, butterflies, if you have never listened to any of my other episodes, this is very important. Butterflies lay eggs on their host plant. And a host plant, and again, none of the episodes, none of these newscasts mentioned any of this, because this is getting down in the weeds, but this is important to know if you want to help the butterfly population. So every butterfly and moth lays their eggs on a specific plant or plant family. So let's just take the monarch because that is easy. Monarch butterflies lay their eggs on milkweed species, and that is it. And so, as a human, I can have my baby in the bathtub. I can have it on the sofa. I can have it in a hospital. I could have it in the middle of the backyard, I suppose, if I wanted to. But that's not the way it goes for these insects, for butterflies. Here is why. So the monarch butterfly mates, of course, lays its eggs on the underside of a milkweed leaf. And milkweed is not a weed, by the way. I don't know why it's called that. That's just what it's called. It grows anywhere you want to put it, really, but it typically grows in meadows. So it lays its eggs on the underside of the leaf. And that egg hatches. And then that caterpillar needs to eat the leaf of the milkweed. That is the reason every butterfly and moth has a host plant, because the baby caterpillar needs that particular food, that particular plant, in order to survive. So if you took all the milkweed off this earth and you think to yourself, well, why can't the monarch just go lay its eggs on an oak tree leaf or a marigold leaf? Because that's not the way they're wired. You know what I mean? It's like, why don't you and I eat dirt? We just don't want to. We could eat dirt, but probably if all we ate was dirt, we're eventually going to die. A monarch caterpillar can eat nothing but a milkweed leaf. That is actually what gives its toxicity, so that most predators don't bother it. But if we take a black swallowtail butterfly, those are around here in central Ohio, a black swallowtail butterfly will lay its eggs on all species of carrot. Okay, and so that's off the top of my head. That is dill, parsley, fennel, Queen Anne's lace, maybe carrots. I'm not sure, like the carrot greens. So those caterpillars then will eat those leaves. And don't worry, it's not like those stupid bagworms where it's going to decimate a tree or a bush. They don't eat that much. So if you understand, so if you planted an herb garden, you could actually attract the black swallowtail butterfly. So what we're trying to do here is provide not only a spot for these butterflies to eat as an adult butterfly. If more of us planted these native plants that are the host plants of butterflies, then the problem would be solved. And again, I'm not talking about replanting an entire forest. Like if most of us just added, instead of a forsythia bush, for instance, and maybe something uses that as a host plant, but I'm just not sure. If some of us planted a spice bush, the spice bush swallowtail uses that. It's a lovely bush. Pussy willow, there is something that lays its eggs on that, an arrowwood viburnum. So if you were to Google butterfly host plants for wherever it is you live, you will see a whole list. And then maybe you just plant one of those. I'm not telling you have to plant the entire yard of just nothing but host plants. And again, I'm not a purist. I have friends who say, you plant nothing but native or you're going to go to hell. You know what I mean? That's not fair. Like, people are busy and you're just not going to get anywhere like that. I will knock myself up more than the average person because this is like what I do. But again, if you're busy for whatever the reason is you're busy, I'm not going to get you to come to my side and see this if I overwhelm you with everything you have to do instead of skinning it down to, hey, you can just do a little bit. So the point is, because I'm going to wrap this up, I think it's probably already been 15 minutes. If you like butterflies, if you would like to see more butterflies for yourself, for your kids, for your grandkids, just consider this season to plant a nectar-producing flower in a pot or on the ground. You can go to your nursery and get a 2-for-1 deal and get a native nectar-producing flower that's a perennial that will come back year after year, so you only have to plant it once. I myself absolutely love zinnias, so I plant them all over the place, including pots, but then one native host plant. So remember that. Nectar-producing plant number one native host plant. And if more of us did that than not, there would not be this massive decline in butterflies. So pesticide use, I will end on that. Here is the deal. When you broadly spray your lawn, it's getting overspray everywhere and everything gets killed. So it's not just the little creepy crawlies that you don't like, it is everything. And there are some moths that lay their eggs and have a cocoon over the winter in the grasses. I think a couple of some butterfly species may do that, okay? But overwhelmingly, like, you're killing a lot of things. So I would encourage you, I would really encourage you to just cut out the pesticide use. But if you are a person that's going to spray your lawn or forget it, then I would ask you to drastically cut down or consider a true organic lawn care company and just take baby steps, okay? Maybe this year you don't cut the pesticide use out, but you plant a nectar-producing plant and a host plant. So if we can just step our way forward with little baby steps, then I know big changes will happen. But that's the positive message I want to leave you with. Everything is not doom and gloom, and there are things that we can easily change, and reversing the decline in butterflies is 100% one of those. So that's it. If you have any questions about this, I will answer what I can. I am not an expert. I'm not an entomologist, but I am very passionate about all the stuff that I talk about. And if I don't know, I will find the answer and we will learn together. All right. So as always, I thank you for listening. If you could do me a favor and share this podcast with someone else, I would greatly appreciate it because I really love spreading the word. So have an amazing day.